On a quiet Sunday afternoon in Asheboro, North Carolina, a little boy walked away from his home, and within hours, the entire community would be searching for him, praying and pleading that he would be found alive. His name was Liam King, just 7 years old, a child with cognitive impairments, nonverbal, vulnerable in ways most of us cannot imagine. And yet, despite every resource, despite the volunteers, the law enforcement, the helicopters, the drones, despite all the headlines, Liam's small body was pulled from a pond 2 days later. This is not just another case of a missing child. This is a story of failure of protection, a failure of systems, a failure of awareness, and perhaps if you listen closely, you might begin to question whether there is more to this tragedy than what we are being told. The questions begin instantly. How could a child so vulnerable slip out of sight? Was no one watching? Where were the parents, the guardians, the people who should have been standing between Liam and the dangers of the world? If he wandered away, how far could he have gone before someone saw him? And more importantly, if he was found in a pond so close to home, did no one hear the splash? Did no one see the ripples? Did no one have a chance to save him in that crucial moment? Imagine the hours ticking by, the search teams combing neighborhoods, the volunteers walking fields, the dogs sniffing for scent, the helicopters slicing through the air, and yet the child remained unfound until it was too late. How is that possible? How could a small boy dressed in a light blue, black, and gray sweatshirt with sonic socks and tan sneakers remain invisible while hundreds looked for him? Was the search too slow, too scattered, or too late from the very start? Authorities tell us Liam's body was discovered around 10 in the morning on Tuesday, September 9th, just 2 days after his disappearance. But was he already gone before then? Did he drown the very day he vanished? Did the pond conceal his body long enough for hope to be destroyed by reality? And if he did drown, why was the water not checked sooner? Why was every pond, every creek, every pool not swept the very first night? People whisper about conspiracies in cases like this because the truth feels unbearable. Some suggest he was taken, held somewhere, and only later placed in that pond. Others ask if negligence played a role. Were adults in his life careless, distracted, unprepared for the responsibility of protecting a child with special needs? Did law enforcement miss obvious signs? Or could something even darker be at play? Something authorities would rather we accept as a simple drowning instead of digging deeper. Every image of Liam, every smiling photo now feels haunting. He cannot speak for himself, so who will? The responsibility falls on us, on a society that says it values its children, yet consistently fails them when they are most vulnerable. A society that too often waits until it is too late to act. Liam's story is more than a tragedy. It is an indictment. It forces us to confront our own silence, our own willingness to look away, our own failure to demand accountability. As the news broke, headlines softened the blow with words like devastated, heartbreaking, tragic. But behind those words lies a harsher reality. A child is gone, and nothing will bring him back. His absence is permanent, his future stolen. And yet we continue to ask, why him, why now, and why under such preventable circumstances? Think about this. In those final moments, whether in confusion or fear, Liam could not call out for help. His voice, silenced by his condition, was never going to reach a neighbor's ear. How many times have we celebrated surveillance, security, the constant monitoring of our lives, yet when it mattered most, no camera, no witness, no watchful eye was there for Liam? Is that not a reflection of a world obsessed with control, but incapable of true protection? Some online voices push darker suspicions. Was Liam's disappearance exploited? His tragedy used to mask something else happening behind the scenes? Was there a cover-up, a convenient explanation to quiet a restless community? When children vanish, communities panic. But when children are found dead, communities question, sometimes too late, sometimes silenced before the answers can be revealed. And still the questions pile up. Why was the pond not secured sooner? Where exactly were his parents when he slipped away? Did anyone in the neighborhood notice a child wandering alone? Was there a delay in reporting? Could those precious hours have been the difference between life and death? Authorities insist they used every resource, but if every resource was truly used, why are we here, mourning, instead of celebrating a reunion? This story leaves us unsettled because it reflects something we do not want to admit: that a child can disappear in plain sight, that despite technology, resources, and manpower, our systems fail, that our promises to protect children are often hollow. And the uncomfortable truth: Liam's death forces us to confront whether we as a society are complicit in these failures. As you listen, as you question, remember, this is just the beginning. What happened to Liam King cannot be dismissed as a simple drowning until every unanswered question is addressed. Was his death preventable? Was it a tragic accident? Or is there more beneath the surface? And if we allow this case to fade, to be buried under headlines and forgotten with time, are we not guilty of letting it happen again to another child? Stay with us, because this story is far from over.
And so the silence after Liam's discovery raises even heavier questions. The pond where his body was found is not a hidden place. It sits within reach of homes, within earshot of neighbors, within the very community that had been combing the area for days. Why was it only on that Tuesday morning that search teams entered the water and confirmed what so many feared? Was the pond overlooked, or was it searched earlier and cleared? If so, how did his body appear there later? These are the details that turn grief into suspicion, suspicion into anger, and anger into pressure on those who should be giving us answers. The sheriff's office tells us that every resource was used, that ground teams and air support never stopped. But eyewitnesses in the neighborhood report confusion, delays, even moments where volunteers seemed more organized than officials. People walked past that pond on Sunday, on Monday, and still, Liam was not recovered. Can the community trust that everything possible was truly done? Or was there hesitation that cost him his life? There is also the matter of responsibility inside the home. A child with Liam's needs does not simply vanish unnoticed. He required constant attention. He required protection. Was the environment safe for him? Were precautions in place to keep him from wandering? And if not, why were they missing? Families caring for children with special needs face enormous challenges, but that cannot excuse neglect. Could safeguards, locked doors, alarms, monitoring have kept him alive? Or do we hesitate to ask these questions because we fear the answers will reflect poorly on people we expect to sympathize with? Beyond the home, we must examine the broader system. How much training do local authorities have for cases involving children with cognitive disabilities? Do they know the patterns, the dangers, the high-risk behaviors? In so many other cases, law enforcement protocols break down because they fail to account for vulnerability. Was Liam's case just another example of a system that was unprepared, a system that has learned nothing from the tragedies of the past? And then there are the whispers spreading online, theories that his body could have been moved. Some point to the possibility of foul play, suggesting that Liam may have encountered someone and what happened afterward was covered up by placing him in the pond. These theories, however uncomfortable, grow louder when basic questions remain unanswered. Was his clothing consistent with being in water for 2 days? Was there evidence of a struggle? Injuries that contradict the drowning explanation? Authorities remain vague, and with vagueness comes doubt. Consider this. In missing child investigations, time is everything. Every minute matters. But what if those first crucial hours were wasted, waiting for coordination, waiting for resources, waiting for decisions? If Liam wandered toward that pond on Sunday afternoon and no one acted fast enough, then we are forced to confront the most chilling reality of all, that he may have been alive, desperate, and within reach, but abandoned by delay. The outrage deepens when we think about the lack of surveillance. Cameras flood our cities, tracking faces, license plates, movements. Yet in this neighborhood, where were the eyes that could have traced Liam's steps? Where were the recordings that could tell us exactly when he approached that pond or whether he was led there by someone else? The technology exists, but was it used? Or do we only apply our tools of control when it serves institutions, not when it could save a life? And what if the neighbors? Hundreds came together to search after the alarm was raised, but how many saw Liam before he vanished fully? Was there an opportunity missed? A moment when one glance out a window, one step onto a porch, one call to his name might have changed everything. These are the uncomfortable questions communities hate to face because they reveal the truth that vigilance was absent, that a collective responsibility was ignored. Some locals now claim they warned about the dangers of that pond, that children in the neighborhood were known to wander too close, and that concerns were raised long before Liam's disappearance. If that's true, then this tragedy was preventable in the most basic sense. Was the pond secured? Was it fenced, monitored, or marked with warnings? Or was it left open, waiting for a child like Liam to become its next victim? All of these gaps, inside the home, in the search, in the neighborhood, paint a disturbing picture of a tragedy layered with neglect. And yet, as much as officials attempt to calm the narrative, these details do not go away. They gnaw at us, forcing us to wonder, are we being told everything? Or is the simplest explanation being pushed to protect those who failed?
And while officials tried to manage the narrative, something else was unfolding: silence from those who should have been speaking. Days passed before any meaningful statements from the family reached the public, and even then, the words were brief, cautious, restrained. Why? Were they overwhelmed by grief, or were they being told what to say and what to withhold? In tragedies like this, families often step forward, desperate to share, desperate to beg for answers. But here, their absence left a vacuum, a silence that only fueled speculation. Viewers, neighbors, and strangers across the country began asking, who is protecting who? The media, meanwhile, shifted tones rapidly. On the first day, urgency filled the broadcasts. Missing boy, high alert, community united. But as soon as his body was discovered, the coverage softened. Reporters repeated official statements almost word for word, glossing over contradictions, avoiding difficult questions. Why did the narrative change so quickly? Why was the community told to grieve quietly instead of pushing for the truth? A free press is supposed to challenge power, but instead it appeared to protect it. This, more than anything, deepens the distrust. And what about the investigation itself? If law enforcement already suspected where Liam was, why were updates so vague? Why release so little, so late? Some community members claim they were asked to stop searching certain areas on Monday night, told to stand down, as though officials were narrowing their scope. Yet by Tuesday morning, the discovery shocked everyone. If officers were confident about their search, why keep locals in the dark? Was it truly about coordination, or was there something they didn't want too many eyes to see? As the story spread, online communities began piecing together timelines, maps, even comparing accounts from those who searched. They noticed gaps, time unaccounted for, statements that didn't match, descriptions of clothing that seemed inconsistent. Were these just errors in reporting, or clues that point to something larger? In the absence of transparency, suspicion takes root, and once it does, it cannot be easily erased. And then the most unsettling thought of all. What if Liam's case is not isolated? What if this is part of a broader pattern? Children vulnerable, systems unprepared, families left shattered, communities left angry, authorities left unchallenged. How many more names will we add to this list before we begin to hold those in power accountable for their failures? Liam's tragedy is personal, yes, but it is also collective. It forces us to reckon with a culture that accepts excuses instead of demanding answers. As you hear these questions, understand this story is far from finished. The unanswered details, the silence, the contradictions, they are not going away. They demand to be confronted. And until they are, the unease will only grow. Stay with us, because what comes next will challenge everything you think you know about this case.